Hi, you're very welcome to the Filum Show. I'm Mike Sheridan, that's Dean Malumbi, that's Brian Lloyd. He has a defensive pose. The second I was like, let's go, we're rolling, Brian went, folded his arms right away.
I thought that was his professional stance.
Is that your professional stance?
Well, it is, but yeah, you see, because if you recall back to the old days of the movie show, anytime you'd say, because there was a, remember we did the 100 episode video thing?
Yeah.
And every time it started off, I would literally fold my legs, and then you would kind of like do that, and I'd fold my legs.
Readjust.
And it was just a thing. So just now that because I don't have the opportunity to fold my legs, I'll just fold my arms.
Okay, there's producer Dave as well. Hello.
Hello.
Enjoyed the show last week, guys. Enjoyed the show.
Thank you.
Did a great job hosting. Brian brought his phone in, which
All right.
now see this is what I think we need to address this, and I think we need to get it out of the way, right? Brian was ranting earlier on about being a professional.
Be
I'm
professional.
a
Just trying to do
professional.
my job.
I'm a professional.
Just trying to do my
And I
job.
cut to the show last week, and Dee's like, Brian, your phone was ringing.
Yeah, because I'm a professional. I'm trying to do my job, and I have to be available. No, I don't have any.
So like, yeah, that's.
I don't have any excuse. I could make up a lie.
Yeah. Once
I
your car wasn't been robbed again.
No, my car was not being robbed. I don't have any excuse. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just.
I was just wrong.
I was just wrong. I
Yeah.
will admit that. I don't like it, and the hilarious thing is that it's not as if I'm some really popular person. I'm not at all.
Nobody likes me.
Nobody likes me in the slightest. So it's not like I have like this social life that everyone's trying to ring me. That never happens. Okay, it was literally.
You have two phones, don't you? You have like you're like the wire.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's not get into that. But
It's like that's my drug dealing phone. Don't talk about my drug dealing phone.
Let's not
I
talk
use
about-
that when I'm on the corner.
Yeah,
I
let's
use that
not-
when I'm on the corner.
yeah, when I'm slinging, you know what I mean. But yeah, like it's
The
not as
mean
if.
streets of Clane. Brian Lloyd.
Anyways, yeah, I apologize to anyone who was listening last week and heard it.
No, I don't think it actually picked up the phone. It was more of an annoyance thing because
Yeah.
it was disruptive.
It was disruptive. I agree completely. It was disruptive.
I was listening to it and I was thinking, I'm like a teacher. I'm going to have to confiscate Brian's phone before we do the show.
I'm really sorry. Like
I
I
thought you
don't
were a nightmare in school, were you?
in school.
Yeah.
I didn't. We did, like this is showing my age now. We didn't have
Not
mobiles. when I
mobiles. We're
was in-
saying in general, you were a
disruptive.
handful.
This is true. It was.
There you go.
Freely
How do
admit
we know that?
Freely admit that. Yeah. Freely admit that.
It's a fairly muck week this week in
It
terms
is.
of releases. Because it's been a blockbuster few weeks in terms of what's been coming out. So we're going to just throw caution to the wind, I suppose, and do a Halloween special.
Why not?
And talk about scary movies.
That time of year, after
That time
all.
of year. So this will be out just after Halloween. At least the video aspect of the show will be as well. So I want to talk about some of our favourite scary movies. And just that show on Netflix, The Haunting of Hill House. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Hill House Haunting.
The Haunting of Hill House.
The Haunting of Hill House. I got it
Yeah.
right the first time. Which I think is the best horror I've seen in years. Would you guys who has seen it?
I still haven't seen it yet.
No.
I started watching that Sabrina thing last
really?
night.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's
Really?
really good. Yeah. It's gas. Like I mean, it's very.
Does it take itself seriously?
No, not at all.
okay.
No, not at all. But like, it's not as directly funny as the original Sabrina with Melissa Joan Hart and all that. But it's good though. It's funny, like in parts, and it's very full on, and it's just it's fun. Like it's enjoyable. And your one is very good in it, Kiernan Shipka.
Yeah, she looks really like Melissa Joan
Yeah,
Hart,
and like she was brilliant in Mad Men as well. And that lady who was Dawn in the UK office, I don't know her real name.
I've lost it. Lucy Davis?
Lucy Davies.
Yeah, it is Lucy Davis.
Lucy Davies,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
She plays Aunt Hilda.
Yeah.
And the other lady was in Lord of the Rings.
Miranda Otto.
There we go. Yeah,
That's a pretty cool cast.
It's a great
Yeah.
cast.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
so
no, it's a great cast. Yeah,
Does it look
yeah.
like it has a bit of cash behind it?
Oh, God, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it does look like it's got plenty of money
That
behind it.
Netflix money.
It's great, isn't it? Why are we talking about Netflix and not talking about scary movies?
Oh, and I've been catching up on Treehouse of Horror, if we're all talking about our
yeah, true
Halloween-y
enough.
themed
Do they
watching.
still make those every year?
Yeah. The last one was actually the 30th. It just aired last week. I haven't seen that one now. I'm up to 21, 22, but I mean they're still fairly solid. The specials.
They were always my favourite.
Yeah, exactly.
The shinning.
I just watched the one in the Navi, which is the Avatar parody.
Oh,
that
yeah.
one's very good. Yeah.
Some of it's absolute gold. When The Simpsons went all out genre, it just got really great. Like the Itchy and Scratchy Land was my favourite episode.
Westworld, yeah.
You get the hell, tell them Mitchie sent you. It's him off the helicopter. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so we spoke about Halloween for the past couple of weeks. We're not going to mention Brian's star downing because we've talked about that, I think, enough.
Enough,
So
yes.
if you have to go, okay, most seminal horror movies ever made, most seminal scary movies ever made, the ones that had the biggest impact on you.
Yeah.
Because it's not always the overt horror films
No.
that are the scariest, especially when you kind of see them in your formative years. What movies do you remember from when you were younger? Because again, and it's kind of different because we say this all the time, you're the oldest.
Yeah.
We both have older siblings, so they might be watching
Yeah.
something that we're not supposed to be watching, and you're like, oh.
Well, I had a different like kind of experience with horror movies because basically I saw one when I was about 13 or 14 called The Ring, which people will know.
Yeah.
The remake or the...
This is the American version.
Oh, the American one with Naomi Watts.
With Naomi Watts, exactly. Which scared me so much that I couldn't watch horror movies for years. So I just got really, really freaked out. And I don't know if I told you guys, but like a week after I saw the movie, I was on a holiday with my parents and I was in a hotel room with a TV like in front of me. You know how the TVs are right in front of you. And like I just didn't sleep that night.
Avril Lavigne's going to call out that TV.
But yeah, so that was kind of my upbringing. But like I've been able to watch them since like
terrifying.
but like
for my
since
10
like,
years.
But since I like went to college and I studied film and everything, then I kind of had to make myself like get into them and watch them again. But like I started off with like kind of the 15s ones, like silly ones like It's Alive, which is about the mutant murderous baby.
Yeah.
That one's gas. That's kind of like a slight parody of like Frankenstein or whatever. So that one, and then like it's only in like maybe the last like 3 to 5 years that I've gone back now and I've watched a bunch of the classics. Like I saw, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre now I saw as part of college. It was one of the courses, but I've seen The Shining in full from like start to finish, and like The Exorcist and Nightmare on Elm Street and ones like that only in recent years.
So it's interesting because the guy Mike Flanagan who made Haunting of Hill House and an incredible job with it, he's directing the sequel. To The Shining, Dr. Sleep, Ryan. And I suppose you haven't watched Haunting of Hill House yet.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things I just haven't got around to.
Are you
like,
scared?
No, not at all. No, God. Like, I mean, I've been banging the drum for Gerald's Game, the film he did with Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. Like, that is really, really good. No, I'll get around to it. Like,
when you finish Sabrina.
When I finish Sabrina, once I'm done with Sabrina. Hey, I'm enjoying it. Like, I don't care. Like, whatever. Yeah. No, I will get to it, though. Scary films that I saw. I've talked about it before. In fact, I told the whole story about it on the show before, but I'll tell it again. Nightmare on Elm Street. And what happened was my brother and sister my sister used to had long nails. She used to scrape the door, like what Freddy Krueger would do.
So cruel, yeah.
And then my brother would turn the light on and off outside. And then leave me trapped in the bedroom.
Imagine little Brian there, like,
literally like screaming the house down, like, and they turn the lights on and off and like scrape the door, like, and like 1, 2, Freddy's coming again. Roaring and you're laughing. This genuinely happened. This genuinely happened. And there was a TV series as well, which was Freddy's Nightmares. Yeah, they used to be on Sky One. And
it was like an anthology series.
Yeah, it was like an anthology series, and there was a thing in it where it was like somebody was sitting in a seat and then they get pulled into the seat, and that for some reason just freaked me out even more, and I couldn't sit on seats for a while. You're laughing.
So you couldn't sit on
I couldn't sit on seats because I was always afraid it was going to like slip.
What about
into them
toilets?
And be taken away. Toilets were okay. Toilets were fine.
Because that's practical,
That's practical,
So sitting.
Just like hover, you know?
Yeah. But like seats for...
Like it's a public toilet and you're like, don't want to catch that.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, that was a practical, but like you have to remember, like I was like about 4 years old when they were doing this to me, like, so this clearly traumatized.
That's child abuse.
That is child abuse. Like, that's clearly like traumatized years later. Yeah. It's weird. Like, I mean, one of my all-time favorite films is The Shining, and I watch it now and I can understand why it terrifies people, but it doesn't terrify. I'm just more kind of taken in by the visuals of it, like.
Yeah.
And just how it's able to kind of like create this like really strong atmosphere of dread. And I'm always gone on about the documentary Room 237, just in terms of like the symbolism that Stanley Kubrick was using, like the whole thing about like, it's basically, there's a theory. There's loads of different theories about The Shining, and one theory is that he wanted to make a movie about Native American genocide. And if you go back and watch The Shining, there's loads of references in the background to Native American culture. And like, there's another thing of like, it was actually about how now this is really out there, but there's another theory that The Shining is about how Stanley Kubrick helped to fake the moon landing. Yeah, no, I can see
heard that one too.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
just
yeah.
let me. You're making that face, producer Dave. Let me draw
Your cynical face.
Let me draw you a picture.
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily cynical. I'm just very much looking forward.
I'll
this
tell you why,
jigsaw.
right? And I'm gonna need some visual telling of this, right? So, the carpet where we see little Danny playing with his toys, you know, when the ball rolls up to him, the actual pattern design is the exact same pattern design as
The carpet on the moon.
No. Cape Canaveral. The launch pads for Cape Canaveral.
This is already a stretch.
No, this is all true. And the shirt that he's wearing, the jumper that Danny is wearing in that is an Apollo 11 jumper, right? So the theory is that when the ball is thrown to him, the ball represents the lie that is the moon landing. And then when he grabs the ball and stands up, it looks like he's basically, the lie was that this was going to the moon. And then
It was symbolism. He was angry.
And then the bit where Jack is freaking out to his wife and he's all like, do you have any idea what I have to do? Do you have any idea what a contract is? All this thing. That's Stanley Kubrick. Wait for it. I'm sounding like Alex Jones.
It's so animated.
Intergalactic beings.
They're just people. But no, the story is that whole sequence was Stanley Kubrick freaking out to his wife about the secrecy of him having to keep this secret, that he was hired by the government.
He didn't do a great job keeping a secret if he put all the symbolism in one of
Exactly.
the biggest
Yeah.
horror movies ever
Exactly.
made.
This is true.
I'd agree with that.
This
and
is true.
also,
No.
if you went to that effort, like costume designer is like, oh, we're gonna, and he's like, no, put this Apollo 11 jumper on your man. He's like, why? He's like, no reason. And then at no point in the rest of his future was he after like a couple of sherries and be like, I'll tell you something now, right?
Yeah.
Do you know that film we made?
Sherry.
It's funny because I actually faked moon landing.
Like between setups on Eyes Wide Shut where all the orgies going on, he was like, lads, just gotta break the ice. You know remember that time when America landed on the moon? Wow.
No, I mean, look. What I would say to you is if you watch Room 237, it's a very entertaining. Now, I don't subscribe to this at all.
You're a flat earther though, aren't you?
What?
You're a flat earther.
Am I in my hoop? But
The table in front of you is symbolism.
it's
Yeah,
symbolism
that
of the art.
is,
No,
yeah.
but I mean, the reason why I always talk about The Shining is because it is so rich with
Yeah.
Yeah.
ways you can watch it. That's what I would say. It's so rich in ways you can watch it. And Room 237 is a brilliant companion to it because it explores the different ways that people can watch it. And for a horror film, and horror is always kind of considered to be like one of the lesser genres, that kind of way, that it's just really kind of cheap.
That's probably true, I think, up until Silence of the Lambs, because Silence of the Lambs won the Oscars, and that was seen as a homecoming of sorts not a homecoming, but a trailblazer of sorts for
What
horror.
freaked you out?
Yeah, and what freaked... because I've got... My siblings are like 7, 9 and 10 years older than me. So they were like way more advanced. So, by default then I was as well. So films they watched when I was growing up was like Fright Night, Child's Play. So a lot of that was kind of like 80s, and then
VHS.
Gremlins, that type of stuff.
Gremlins was more of a comedy.
It was, but so was Child's Play. So if you watch Child's Play back, Chucky's hilarious. Brad Dourif does the voice of Chucky. It's very funny. But I remember even seeing the trailer first. I've been freaked out by the trailer first.
Yeah.
I was terrified. But again, I was like 7 or 8 or something. But for me, it's still the best movie, I suppose, in that genre. And that's not discounting the fact that I think you're talking about The Shining, right?
Yeah.
The Shining is more unsettling.
Yeah.
And I think more
Disturbing.
more disconcerting because there's elements where you're like, that's freaky. And I think they're the moments that stick out for you with movies that are supposed to scare you, as opposed to a gory death for something like even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre D, because it's just mental and you can't believe you're watching it.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I watched that, I was in college, I think I was in school. And I remember I was about 15, 16. And I remember as it ends, I'm just sitting there with my mate going, Jesus.
Yeah. And I mean, that was like, I don't think it was the first movie to do this, but it was kind of pre the Blair Witch Project in that it was saying that this was kind of, based on something that actually happened.
Make it just that bit scarier.
Yeah, yeah.
And Last House on the Left as well, which is Wes Craven's first movie too.
Yeah.
There was something about movies back in the 70s as well, and I think you'd seen directors play with that a little bit, with It Follows, or that was probably more of an 80s vibe, but there was something about how films looked back then.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because it's when you begin watching them or whatever it is, but there's something about how they look, about how they feel that's a little bit like, oh,
I think it's just
I'm
more
scared.
Yeah, I think it was more kind of like there was an intensity. There was an intensity with it. And because it was so fresh, that kind of, because it hadn't been done before. Like, you watch, like, The Exorcist, for example. Like, William Friedkin on that movie was insane, the stuff that he got up to. Like, he literally was, like, firing off guns in the set to try to get people terrified. There's a scene in it where Ellen Burstyn gets thrown across the screen. And the first time he did it, she was just, like, kind of lightly tugged. And then he was like, look, we're going to go full tilt in this. And he told her, look, she was like, the first time she did it, it was like, ow, that's really sore. And he's like, don't worry, we'll take it easy. Then he went to like the stunt guy and he was like, pull it as hard as you can. And like, you can see her actually, that's the scene that made it into the film. She actually broke her coccyx. And you can, like, the anguish on her face. Yeah, the anguish on her face where you can actually see her in agony. Like, that's real. Like, and I think that's why 70s horrors rather, have much more of an edge to them, because people were just going full tilt for it. Like even in Halloween, like John Carpenter's Halloween, like it was like that kind of point of view thing had never been done before. Like, you'd never seen what it was like.
And then Friday the 13th ripped her right off. Cunningham,
completely, yeah.
And then Alien would be kind of another example of that. The fact that none of the actors on set like knew that was going to happen. The alien bursting out of the chest, and wasn't it? I can't remember the name of the actress, but the one who's standing
Veronica
beside,
Cartwright. She had a panic attack.
Like you can see she is terrified in that scene, and she like she has a fear of blood or something in real life and everything. So like she went kind of nuts. Well, she didn't know she was in that movie. That's the whole point, I suppose.
Yeah, the whole thing. The story behind that was they were told, look, something's gonna come out of it, but they didn't know what it was, and they basically had kind of rigged like the blood packs or whatever, and apparently they forced it up too much, and the blood splattered everywhere, and it all got all over their faces. Yeah. And when it hit your one Veronica Cartwright, she apparently like screamed crying, and they actually had to stop filming because she was like that shocked by it. Like, and it's funny you mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because Ridley Scott was saying how they actually, before they began work on Alien, they watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Really?
Yeah, that would have been a few years before.
There's no gore really in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No, but they were saying it was the shock factor. It was like
but it is. No, if you watch it, there's a scene where the bone been cut with the chainsaw, but that's it. There's no gore. There's no blood.
Yeah,
there's not like kind of excessive amounts of blood, but there's certainly like violence. I mean, she's stuck up on a meat hook.
Yeah,
and
that
stuff,
wasn't sound.
So.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's that the intensity of it. Like, that's
it's almost like it's like the bluntness of what happens with that scene and that actor's response to that scene, and it just seems so
primal.
Real and like that. And I think that's the scariest stuff, because you mentioned the Blair Witch Project, and I don't think the Blair Witch Project gets enough credit for how impactful it was. And I mean, it led to all the paranormal activity movies and a bunch of other found footage movies as well. When the Blair Witch Project first came out, you're probably a young nipper for this, David, you probably don't remember this, right? But when the Blair Witch Project came out, we didn't know that it wasn't. Nobody knew that it wasn't. By the time we got to Ireland, people knew. But it was when it first came out in America and the screenings first happened, because they used their real names. They used the actors' real names. Everybody thought it was like a snuff movie. Everybody was terrified. Do you remember much about when it first came out?
I do remember, yeah. I remember for one of the ads for it, they actually showed people after the film, like literally in their seats, like crying and stuff like this, and not being able to understand it. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not the first found footage. The very first found footage film was a film called Cannibal Holocaust from the 70s. It was made in Italy. And like you were saying, the snuff film, what happened with Cannibal Holocaust was that they actually purposely wanted people to think it was a snuff film. And there was like a local magistrate actually charged the director with murder. And then as part of the kind of promotional thing for it, he actually brought the actors in and said, no, this is not a snuff movie. This was all filmed. Blair Witch Project, I think it was kind of unintentionally done that way, because you're right, they did use the actors' real names, but they never kind of they didn't do any promotion for it. Like, it was all just sort of like, this film is out there, this is how it was done.
It was Sundance, wasn't it? First went
yeah.
at Sundance, and it turns up and everybody was like, what the Jesus?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Blair Witch coming out?
I do indeed.
Do you remember what was it like when it went all the way down to Cork now? Did you think it was real?
Well, see, what was it, 98?
99?
Yeah.
98, 99.
I was 10. probably wouldn't have been allowed to see it then. I think it was probably a year or two later after I saw it. But to be honest, when I watched it, I thought it was dreadfully boring until it
A lot
got
of people
to like,
did think
the
that.
end.
It's
But
probably
the
the,
end
probably
was
the build up
terrifying.
in, I think, the marketing for it, because the marketing for it was genius. But that build up of, oh my God, what's kind of going to happen? Because they made it for 20 grand or something. So there's not going to be.
Oh no, as in I thought it was good, but I suppose as a hyperactive 10-year-old, I was like, come on, like do something. And then at the end I was like, oh no, stop doing things, because it was very scary.
But isn't the kind of thing, like, I mean, again, it's that thing of like, anytime I think of Blair Witch Project now, I think a scary movie. I think at the bit where they do this bit where she's running through the forest and then she's like holding the camera down.
And a forest,
and like the snot is coming out of her nose. That's all I think of now when I think of Blair Witch. What movie freaked you out, producer Dave?
It's actually one I think I've touched on before, which The Children is one of the scarier films I saw.
The Children?
The Children.
Yeah,
I don't know
I watched it. It was late night Sky movies there, probably 6-7 years ago. I'd say I saw it. I think it's about 10 years old. It was a British film, and it was like two families bring their young children, like toddler, like 3-4, bring their kids up to the mountains, snowy mountains, and the kids turn into psychopathic killers, and they start killing their family.
Murderous toddlers.
Yeah, but it's like convincingly done as opposed to like slapstick. But then again, it has been years since I saw it. So, but I do remember watching it and just it was just really unnerving, because it was their own kids.
Yeah, that's kind
who
of like
are
Children
usually
of
the
Corn.
ones that like get protected in these kind
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
But they were the antagonists, and it just kind of came gradually, kind of thing. Like,
Was there anybody famous in it?
not that I'm really aware of. I think one of the girls, I think she was like one of the lads' girlfriends in the In-Betweeners a few years later or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought it was very good, yeah. And as a child, I do remember being terrified by arachnophobia.
The film?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's a spoiler.
Well, I was
thing,
just
isn't it?
scared
You
of
hate
spiders
as a kid,
spiders.
like,
I
yeah.
understand like spiders.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it. Can't do it.
You're
Can't
afraid
do
of
it.
spiders?
Yeah, I
I
don't
like
spiders.
spiders.
Well, I mean, practically afraid of spiders. You know, in that, like, if I see a giant tarantula, I'm not gonna be like near it. And I'm not gonna hold it and be like, "Isn't that cute?" No.
Well, you
I
do
don't
live
like
in
that.
Ireland, so poisonous ones are.
Oh, there's
far
more of them
away.
now. They're all coming
Yeah,
over.
false widows.
They're all coming over with the bananas and stuff, and then mating with our spiders and eating them. And apparently that's something that's happening.
How do they carry
All right,
them?
Dad.
great.
No, that's what that taxi driver told me that time, and I don't think he was lying.
I was gonna say, yeah. I was gonna say that's clearly a taxi driver story I've ever heard of. You know they're coming over on the bananas.
Yeah, they're poisonous. You can die.
Yeah, false widows I think is what they're called. They're like the really big ones. Rats freak me out though.
Rats too.
Yeah.
Oh
if I
well,
see-
they're like kind of big and
Yeah.
proper, like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Pizza Rat was real cute.
No, I think of king rats. If you want to really terrify yourself, Wikipedia king rat. That image will. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That'll stay with you for days. And don't if you're editing this, Charlotte, please don't put a picture up of it. Don't do it, okay? Because it's just
You're
disgusting.
gonna freak people out.
Yeah.
You're just traumatizing all our listeners / viewers right now.
Yeah, just if you really want to mess yourself up, look up King Rat.
But I think it's interesting though talking about saying about the Blair Witch Project, where it wasn't necessarily it was like that one of those couple of moments at the end of the film where you're like, oh holy shit, and it just leaves you
Yeah.
a little bit stunned. There's moments like that I think in all the best horror movies,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
even Silence of the Lambs, where Lecter finally escapes and you go in and as a Clarice or somebody goes up and the police go up looking for him and you see what he did to one of the
Yeah, he
police
left him-
officers. He leaves him.
Yeah.
I remember being terrified of that. Going, holy.
Really?
Well, I was young when I saw
Yeah,
it. It was in '91 when that film came out. '92.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, holy, because there was something just so sinister.
Yeah.
You know that this psychopath had. It wasn't just somebody just didn't just get stabbed and
Yeah.
die, which is bad enough, obviously.
Yeah, because the Silence of the Lambs has like these kind of just random, really violent, really like graphic, bloody moments, and I had the same. It had the same impact on me in that it just kind of totally shocked you, especially when you get into the third act and everything, when you get more and more of those moments. So yeah. I actually enjoyed all three of those movies, like Hannibal as well. And I
Hannibal's a
liked Red
beautiful
Dragon.
looking. Hannibal's
Yeah.
a beautiful looking movie, and like this isn't a hipster thing to say it, but Manhunter is the best
Manhunter's
of the
still the
bunch.
best.
Brian Cox plays Hannibal Lecter just that bit differently. It's kind of like more passively psychotic than Anthony Hopkins, who's very much zoned in on stillness and being terrified in the moment. Where Brian Cox is just this will casually say things into William Peterson, who played Will Graham in it. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And it's really like Michael Mann's obviously, to steal a phrase from Brian Lloyd, a director very much of his time. You know, for each film is of its time. And Manhunter's all the synth
and the
80s
neon
music
80s,
and the neon, but whether you call it a horror movie or not, it's a great movie, Brian, and it doesn't get enough credit at all.
I love Manhunter. I'm so glad you brought
The
up
two
Manhunter.
fairies,
Yeah, Francis Dollarhide, and he was played by what's his name? Noonan, Paul Noonan. I forgot the guy. Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan.
He's in Heat.
He's in Heat.
Last Action Hero.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a really well-known character actor. Yeah, but what Manhunter I think did really well was really add style to horror. You know, that kind of way, because you look at like horror movies of the 80s, like Child's Play or like Nightmare on Elm Street or any of those. They're very, very kind of direct and to the point, and there's not a whole lot of kind of visual styling going on to it. Whereas when Michael Mann did it in Manhunter, you could see that there was a real thought put into, you know, how is this going to look? How is the colouring of this going to look? How is, you know, that camera angle going to impact on the viewer? I mean, the closest thing I could kind of point to being similar to Manhunter would be something like Suspiria, the original one with Dario Argento, and that's because Dario Argento, he studied Art Deco. He if you look at Suspiria, the original one, there's a lot of Art Deco design.
I remember trying to watch it years ago and I couldn't sit through it.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Like it's not a great film, to be honest. But in Manhunter, there's loads of Art Deco in it as well, and like that's Art Deco is an art movement that Michael Mann has used in all of his films. Like in Heat, there's loads of load of the buildings were shot, or a load of the buildings that are featured in the background have Art Deco in it. Public Enemy is the same as well. So it's just the idea of like using art and using an art movement to kind of influence horror is incredible. That's something that isn't really done a lot.
Well, I mean, it would have been used at like, sorry to get all like
no,
nerdy
go on.
and film referencing
Cabinet
here.
of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah, I was going to mention, German Expressionism. So that would have been kind of the very first. It's just interesting that kind of the first like horror movies that really kind of, you know, spanned out and became like, exactly, became hugely influential, came from Germany, and they came from like this kind of real like influence of art on cinema and stuff. And I suppose that was also because like film from its very early time was kind of still considered like very much like a medium that was like just for entertainment and the lower classes and all of this jazz. So they used art and they incorporated it, and it worked, as it turned out, particularly effectively in horror. So there you go.
Isn't it funny how horror can be so cyclical as well?
Yeah.
And that's certainly like the found footage thing was a thing for a while.
Yeah.
And then when Scream, which is one of my favorite films, started out just one of my favorite films, that launched a self-aware slasher movie. When it was the 70s, it was Last House on the Left. It was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then lead up to Halloween. Then it was Friday the 13th. Now it's Haunting a Hill House, I think, and a couple of them like The Nun. The Conjuring movies are so successful. It's that like it's more of a ghost thing right now, isn't it?
Supernatural, supernatural kind of ones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was also a huge one for kind of making, you know, horrors like big kind of box office fodder again, you know.
Well, its opening weekend was so huge, and the film made so much money.
Yeah.
But it was a blockbuster. Like it's an expensive movie. It's a really beautifully shot movie. Like you're talking about, you don't really see that many horror movies that are like just well made.
Yes.
Or have a style template really. I think the most terrifying. Okay, let's see what you guys think of this, because we've spoken about this before, right? But the most so you say Texas Chainsaw Massacre when put on the hook by Leatherface, and that just terrifyingness of that scene. The most terrifying, I think, death scene in any movie for me is Zodiac.
Oh God, yeah,
that is
and
it's broad daylight.
Yeah,
and it's just the realness of that, the noise, it's horrible even thinking about it. And so you're talking about when great directors, when really like David Fincher, when like Michael Mann, like Jonathan Demme, when they make horror, they just bring so much to the genre. It's just not something we see anymore. What on-screen deaths freaked you out the most? That
I remember seeing that in the cinema. Me and my girlfriend Kate went to see that when it was out in cinemas. And that sequence, I swear to Christ, I can still hear your one screaming. Like, it's horrible.
It's the bluntness of it or something.
It was, because like, I mean, the thing that they always say in horror films is that like, if you don't see it, your mind will fill in the blanks. And that's kind of idea that you could freak yourself out better by doing it. But I genuinely believe if they show it, if you see it happening, that's terrifying. And like, another example I would say of a film that or of a death rather that freaked me out that was really blunt is Jaws. It's when you see Quint getting eaten by the shark. And like, I know it's a big dumb rubber shark, and you know that it's fake.
But you've been on a journey with that character for the whole thing, and it's the impact of that too.
But it's the fact that you see him. It's that thing of the screaming. Like you see like Quint, like this guy who was all like, you know, he's really built and he's really angry and he's really kind of cynical.
I'll catch him for you.
Yeah, but I'll skin him for tin. Like he's, you know, incredible acting. But then when you see him getting eaten and he's terrified and he's like roaring and shouting and like the thing is biting down on him, that freaked me out when I was a kid. But Zodiac, though, I think it's the similar thing as well. It's the idea of like, you see what's terrifying the person on screen.
Yeah,
you know, that
it's her reaction. Her face
reaction.
as well.
But you see
that actor's fantastic.
Yeah. But it's the thing of like, you see what's terrifying them in that same sequence.
Because it's from his point of view, looking at her reaction. Yeah.
And it's like you see him, and in Jaws you see the shark biting, and the reaction is it's all on the one page.
But that whole death sequence in Jaws, that was the first one that you see the
really
shark.
happen,
That you see. You know,
everything else is from a distance,
or it's coming from under the water.
Yeah, everything like I mean when the Kintner kid gets bitten.
I thought that bit was more traumatizing.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's a kid.
I know
they actually killed a kid, and there's like blood splurting up into the air.
But it's
and
all
everything.
from the distance.
But it's horrific. It's a child.
I know.
But that's why it works probably because it's a distance. Because if you saw that, you'd be on the beach.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's my
You know.
maternal instinct kicking in. I was like, no, not the baby.
No, it is terrible.
And remember how you're really nervous he's going to go after the dog, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
not the dog.
Isn't
I
it
remember
hilarious
that,
how people
yeah.
react like that
Yeah,
in the
thank
cinema?
you.
If you see, like the dog, what was it recently? Was it Meg? The dog gets in the water.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, not the dog.
Oh God, leave the dog.
Kill
out.
all these other characters, no problem. We don't care, but not the dog.
Yeah, Halloween did that as well. There was a bit where like
I do remember this.
when he
yeah.
was like standing over a crib, and you're like, holy Jesus, he's gonna kill a baby, and then he just walks away from it. And you're like,
Because I missed the show obviously last week, but I've seen Halloween.
Well-
I really liked it. I think it's a 4-star movie. It's really good fun. I'm not going to go into it again, Brian. We've had public and private disagreements
Yes,
about
we
your,
have.
about your star rating for Halloween. But that brought it back to the whole. I want to get your favorite on-screen death as well, or the most terrifying on-screen death that you had as well, Dee. But just talking about Halloween, there was just the Terminator 2 analogy works on so many levels because he's just a machine, and he's like the one scene that they show bits of it in the trailer. Where he's walking down the
tracking
street.
shot.
Yeah, he's walking down the street, and it's like a big long tracking shot. And then he looks in the house, and then you literally see him go around the back and come into the house. It's that kind of bluntness, but there's something almost cartoonish about it because you know what I mean? Like it's something. Like, I mean, it's great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That was a really fun movie. Everything about it worked for me, but it's not that Zodiac style.
No,
because so many people are being killed.
Yeah.
And then the two podcasters at the start, I was like, "Oh, kill him! Oh yes, brilliant! You were doing my head, and you know, it's not the same where you go on a journey with a character,
Yeah.
and you're,
Yeah.
oh God, I can't
poor
believe
little
that."
kid.
And on a quick aside, on the Haunting of Hill House, there's this. I think it's the 6th episode. Have you ever watched it yet, Dave? Have you?
Nope.
There's a 6th episode. I think it's the first shot. I think is about 20 minutes long. It's all a tracking shot, and you're on a soundstage, and it's. You realize how because they go in not to give too much away, but it's like a funeral, and then they're walking into a different part of it, a different part of the house, and then they're in the old house, and how Mike Flanagan stages it, and it's obviously like a play, and they blocked it out in detail. It's incredible. It's the best horror I've seen in I don't know how long. It is, but I'm just saying like it's a really good series anyway.
Yeah.
But just the technicality of how they do it is. It's because you're going on a journey with these characters. You've been with them for 6 episodes or whatever it is already.
Yeah.
So, Dee, what's your one moment where you were like...
I was I was kind of racking my brain there trying to think of a moment, but I suppose just in relation to what we were talking about there, I think that the movie that has to get the shout out is Psycho, because it's the first movie that did all of that. It's the first one that was kind of a bloody death without seeing any blood. It was the first one where like we really kind of got to like know and care about this character, and you know, you see her go on a moral journey. She's going to like run away with the partner with all this money, and then she kind of realizes it's wrong and is about to change her mind, and then she gets killed in the shower. And like just the fact that like, you know, that character is so
like
kind
halfway
of
through the movie, Janet Leigh was a big star.
yeah, she was a big star, and just the fact that like as well, just like where she's killed, the fact that like it's in the shower and everything, and she's so like exposed and vulnerable. Like there's literally nothing that she can grab. She can't even like have a like sense of dignity, you know, because she's naked.
As well.
It's so
the
horrible.
music
Yeah,
is...
yeah. Bernard Herrmann isn't it? Yeah, and he would have done like the iconic music for Vertigo as well. Like his compositions are incredible.
Do you have a favorite death? Not to sound morbid, but like, or one that like impacted you when you were a youngster? Or
I would say one of the more heart-wrenching deaths was Shaun of the Dead's mum in the pub.
Interesting.
And it wasn't so much her death, because I mean it was always going to happen, because she was actually, like, I assume you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, cause she's been bitten, and it's obviously like she's going to die at some point. And it was when Dylan Moran had the gun pointed at her, and Simon Pegg roared at him, and he was like, "Stop pointing a gun at my mum." And it was the way his voice was in that. I thought that was
it's a real moment in a kind of a horror comedy.
Yeah.
Really, like,
Yeah.
But funny enough, Dylan Moran's death and that really freaked me out as well. Actually, I'd like there's something about, like, I have a real problem with zombies. Like, I can't watch zombies.
See, that goes back to
I love zombie
But
movies.
that goes back to
That's
that
mad.
cyclical thing as well of, and then it was zombie movies, because around Shaun of the Dead it was 28 days later.
Yeah.
28 days later, and there was a bunch more of them. Dawn of the Dead, the Dawn of the Dead
Yeah.
remake. Why do zombies freak you out?
I don't know. I think it's the, like, that scene in Shaun of the Dead when Dylan Moran gets ripped apart. Like, I think it's the idea of, like, loads of people coming at me and, like, not being able to fight.
You
them
just
off.
don't want to be touched.
Yeah,
in
like,
general.
no,
It's
but
just the idea of
genuinely,
being touched in
I
general.
mean, like, if I was to go to a psychologist and tell him all this, he'd be like, "Yeah, this is, you have problems with intimacy, you have problems with people coming at you." No, it's really true. Like zombie movies, I can't deal with it.
I always think zombie movies are fun.
I love the Resident Evil movies, and I know they're crap, but for me, they're like
you were
popcorn.
really
I
weird,
love the
yeah.
Resident
Yeah.
Evil movies.
I'd
Like,
be
they're
the
so
same.
rubbish. They're such easy
Yeah, they're
watching,
fun.
you know?
Yeah,
I love the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Yeah.
it's really good.
Love the Dawn of the Dead
Yeah,
remake.
it's
That
really good.
that opening title sequence to The Man Comes Around. James Gunn wrote the script, obviously Zack Snyder directed it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so good.
But if you go back and you watch like the original zombie movie, which by the way, they never actually use the word zombie through the whole movie, Night of the Living Dead, which this year turns 40. Would
40,
that be
and it's
right?
on public domain. You can watch
Yeah.
it for free on YouTube.
So check it out. But that movie, I was really surprised at how much it blew me away. Especially, I won't give it away now, but the ending, the last few minutes, I was like, did they just do that? Holy crap. Like, it really, like, it just goes to show like what a legend George A. Romero was. And it does show like this is a worthy movie to like spark off this huge, like, kind of movement of movies
Yeah.
since. So, yeah.
And do you know where the real villains are? And I think it goes back to Dave's most terrifying movie he's seen. Kids are scared. Kids are scared than any serial killer.
Yeah.
Than
Actually,
any masked
specifically
whatever.
after The Ring, it was any horror with freaky children. I
Yeah.
couldn't-
Orphan,
I
like
couldn't
Orphan.
do,
But isn't that
Yeah,
the whole
couldn't
thing
watch
though?
that.
Like, what's the most terrifying thing you could see in the middle of the night? Wake up and it's just a kid standing at the end of your bed just there. That's worse than a guy with a knife.
It's
Yeah.
because children are unpredictable and you don't know what's going through their tiny, crazy little minds.
You wanted to save them a few minutes ago. One was getting eaten by a shark. Now you're like, get away from me.
Yeah,
That
there's
one
that
was
famous maternal instinct.
Yeah. Oh, she's quite the maternal one, is that our Deirdre? No, my sister. I tell you another one. My sister dressed up her son as Chucky. For
How old is he?
Oh, that's
he's like 3
cute.
now. He's like 3.5. Like, gave him like the dungarees,
The little
and put
hair,
the little
yeah.
hair,
Chucky.
and like drew the little thing in him, then gave him a phone knife. And sent him out, and he was like running around like. Jennifer's freaked out. She's a nut job. She's a nut job as my sister.
Okay, well, that was an interesting discussion on the old horror genre. So you're going to watch anything on Halloween night?
I've actually never seen the Blair Witch Project, so with all our talk about it, I might go
It's
watch
so-
it. Oh, and another one, I have to shout out for this one. I know I've mentioned it a few times on the show, but I absolutely adore Raw. So I'm gonna rewatch
Yeah,
that.
I saw you tweeting about Raw
Yeah.
the other day.
Yeah.
I must give that a watch. Okay, let's move on to something lighter, Dee. Let's finish with some light movie news.
Some movie news.
Did the
I didn't
robot-
know if you were
did the
doing the
robot.
robot or
I
what.
did, yeah. You can do the robot.
So I just have a couple of news items today. I thought I'd keep it lean. First of all, we have to have our obligatory news that Brian can rant on about. So this one is related to Star Wars. The Boba Fett standalone movie has officially been cancelled. This essentially signals the end of the short run of standalone movies that Star Wars were planning, starting with Rogue One, and then they had Solo, which ended up being a total,
Mess. Just say
Still
mess.
give it 3.5 stars.
But they're now refocusing on the TV series The Mandalorian from
It's with Jon
Favreau.
Favreau, yeah.
Yeah, Bryce
So-
Dallas Howard and Taika Waititi are going to be directing episodes of it. So that's
Yeah, they've gotten some interesting people involved. So
Yeah.
James Mangold was going to direct that.
Yeah, so it would have been. It would have been interesting to see.
So you reckon they've just readjusted the whole?
Yeah, that's what they've said.
Lucasfilm.
Yeah, apparently the story is that Solo lost them that much money and
Because they reshot it.
yeah, and not even that as well. It was the fact that they were doing too much too soon. They wanted to. It's the whole thing of walk don't run. Like they wanted Marvel amounts of money and Marvel amounts of output from it. And like the thing of it is that like the original ones like A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, they were like 4 years apart.
Yeah.
And between Return of the Jedi and the prequels, Phantom Menace, there was nearly like 20 years or whatever it was. So like,
and here's Lucasfilm like basically trying to put out a Star Wars movie a year.
Yeah, which is just
Their whole thing was though that it worked really well up until Solo,
yeah.
and it works really well for Marvel. So it's a formula that does work. The issue is that Solo didn't work.
Didn't work at all. No, and I think a lot of it is down to the fact that like the directors that they're hiring, they have good intentions, but they just don't seem to have a grasp on Lucasfilm's way of doing things. Like as in like with Garrett Evans and all that, like they had to bring in Tony Gilroy to basically direct the entire third act and completely rewrite.
He was
it.
in to help him, wasn't he? Was not.
He came in to help them, but like I mean, apparently what happened was he basically redirected a lot of the kind of the smaller scenes. Like
Rogue One is one of those ones as well. It's a lot of people's favorites.
It's a lot
It
of
makes
people.
a choice, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and like I think the fact that it's a contained story in the sense of like it has a beginning, a middle, and end, and these characters aren't going to make it out of it. Solo, a lot of people did like it. I mean,
it's at 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's well enough reviews.
Well enough, yeah. And like I say, like people enjoyed it. But the fact is that it had a terrible production. Like it had a really bad production, and like Ron Howard had to reshoot everything. James Mangold, I think, if he had been given the chance to make his Boba Fett film, I think that would have really corrected it because. The character of Boba Fett is based on westerns. It's based on Clint Eastwood. It's based on The Man with No Name. And James Mangold is one of the best directors of westerns. Like you look at like Copland, which was essentially a neo-western.
310 to Yuma.
310 to Yuma, Logan. He knows that genre so well.
I feel like people have forgotten about Logan a little bit and how good Logan was.
Yeah.
Because it came out so early last year that it wasn't considered for the Oscar race at all. It's a cracking film.
It's a
It's
brilliant
nominated for best screenplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was
That
like
was
Scott
it,
Frank.
yeah.
Yeah. Like Patrick Stewart should have been in contention for best supporting actor. And
yeah.
Yeah, for
really
sure.
believe he was robbed. He absolutely 100% should have been in the conversation for it. Like the performance that he gives in that is incredible. And James Mangold is a director as well. Like I mean, I know we were talking about Walk the Line last week.
Yeah.
But like go back and watch Copland. That is one of the most underrated films and one of the most underrated performances that Sylvester Stallone has ever given. I think that's up there as his best performance. And I count Rocky in that as well.
I'd agree with you.
What
Yeah,
I
he's
would
great.
add to that is you said there a minute ago about James Mangold being allowed to make the movie he wants to make, and that's actually a good point with regards to like just with Lucasfilm how much, and we've talked about this with the likes of Marvel before, but the studio control thing when it comes to Lucasfilm is on another level. Like they have a very exact vision that they want their movies to come out of, how they want the production to go along and what they want as their final product. And because like they're basically not happy with any kind of creative control going to the directors, it's kind of like, well, where would you bother? Where is there to kind of go with these movies now?
I mean, Phil Lord and Chris Miller there might find it difficult now, being the disagreement that they had with Kathleen Kennedy, I suppose, and the reverberation of that and what they're going to do next, because I mean, we don't know what happened and what didn't happen, right? But it could be foreseen that, well, you've ruined the Star Wars canon of films now, because whoever made the decision, again, we don't know, but somebody on the outside could look in and go, oh, well, you two messed this whole thing up now. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next.
It will be.
If they do anything next.
If they do anything else.
Well, their baby was kind of the Lego movie, and I understand that Lego movie 2, that had a different director.
Has a different director.
Yeah, I just assume because of Solo and stuff. So, so I don't know what they're going to do now.
Yeah.
Anyway, sure, look, it's grand. A couple of Star Wars movies every couple of years is grand.
You don't care.
You don't care either, do you?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
Like I'll go watch them.
I would be interested in them. Like as you said, like Rogue One would have been my favorite Star Wars film.
Yeah.
I think it is the best, I suppose, standalone film. As you said. But yeah, Star Wars, I can most of the time I can take it or leave it. I'm neither up or down it.
Yeah, I think most people are the same except for the nerds like Brian. Yeah. What else you got for Steve?
The It director, Andy Muschietti.
He's Argentinian, isn't he?
Muschietti.
He is set for the US remake of Attack on Titan. So this, for anyone who doesn't know, such as myself, this is one of the best-selling manga comics of all time. It's set in a future where humanity hides in cities while giant humanoid creatures called Titans roam the land. So this has previously been adapted for a live-action movie. It's been adapted for a 2-part anime movie, and Warner Brothers are behind it. Andy Muschietti is currently working on It Chapter 2, so I suppose this will be his next project after that.
I'd say that's closer to wrapping now.
Yeah, I'd say it
Chapter
is,
2.
yeah.
So remember Jessica Chastain posting something to set a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
In Toronto, so it's interesting because it was such a big hit. They obviously rolled up the truck full of money to get him to direct the second one, and he will be seen as somebody who can handle blockbuster money, Brian.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the fact that it was such a success, and like you say, there was so much money kind of pumped into it, like that. The fact that they needed it to do well, and it did do well. Attack on Titan has some horror elements, but it's basically a sci-fi film. Like it
sounds very Blade Runner.
It's kind of
All directors want to make their kind of Blade Runner-y movie, don't they?
Kind of sci-fi epic.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think it will be like It Chapter 2 rather will be the last, I think, horror film he'll make, and from now on he'll be doing like big blockbuster films, which is cool because. You look at Mama, you look at it, the first one, like he has a real understanding of, big, painting on a big scale, that kind of way. He can really kind of get a big, broad vision and kind of drill it down to a small group of people. No, definitely, I'm excited. Definitely, I think Attack on Titan is pretty cool. It's not for everybody.
Whether it happens now.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they got him on board to have a director, I think that now means that it's the wheels are starting to turn on.
Do we think the second It movie can be scary?
Well, I know I haven't seen it now, but I think that the 1990 version is notorious for the second half being no, but it's notorious for the second half not being good.
Yes,
so it kind of has to get rid of that reputation. But I mean, it has got like huge talent behind it with the likes of like Bill Hader, James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, and stuff. So they're definitely like. Using their star stable to try to make it kind of a better movie than perhaps the original source material is.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he can do there, Brian, because there's not a whole lot in the second half,
not really,
other than flashbacks, because they're bringing all the kids back.
They are bringing the kids back, yeah.
And I think that, if you read the book, it gets very ridiculous, which is a problem with a lot of King's books.
It was a giant spider.
Spider, yeah. It's a big giant spider. Pennywise is this spider that
Mike won't be watching it then.
that lives on the third circle of hell or something like that. Oh, it's ridiculous. But I mean, to be fair, the original, the first one did cut out a lot of things from the book that didn't make sense or just weren't going to work. Like that whole.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that thing. I'm not. Yeah, that. They cut that out. Thank God.
It's bad when Brian won't even say it.
Yeah. So I'd imagine there'll be a lot of dubious editing, or dubious. I mean, there'll be a lot of judicious editing
of the book
to condense it and make it scary. And like I say, that's a really strong cast. Like Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy and Bill Hader. That's a good cast.
But I mean, it'll be interesting if it's a shorter half, how they're going to actually extend it out. Because I mean, I was surprised. The first It movie is something like...
It's 2 hours and 10.
It's nearly 2 hours long, yeah. Oh, I thought it was just under 2 hours. Well, it's around 2 hours.
Yeah. But it works. And I think the first It movie as well, because it's easier for the ensembles, I think, to stretch out that long.
Yeah.
And then when they work quite well. But those visuals, like Pennywise dancing, and there's so many great visuals. Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And Bill Skarsgård does such a good job as well.
Oh,
he's brilliant
so
in it, isn't
creepy.
he?
Yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for this week. We hope we've given you some movies to be scurred over. Scurred. We didn't do a revisit this week because we've been talking about movies, so it didn't make sense then to just hey, let's talk about Top Gun.
We could talk about Top Gun.
How about that Kenny Loggins, you guys, right? Brian, what's out next week?
Oh, yeah, I know this. Widows and Overlord.
Deadly. So speaking of horror zombie movies set in World War II, we'd mentioned World War II, but we mentioned both horror and zombie movies.
There we go.
And Widows, I'm going to try and get to that on the Monday, so hopefully
same.
You've seen it.
I have seen it.
And it's very good.
Very good. Very, very good. Yeah, really, really good. I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Very, very good.
Thanks, producer Dave. Appreciate it.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.